New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev Briz and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the New Thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
And hello again, dear ones. Dr. Robert with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And this is Ministers Talking Shit for Friday. It is the 12th of July. Thank you so much for being with us. How you doing this morning, Z?
Hey, doing well, man. Feeling, I won't say spry and chipper, but I'm feeling spry. I ain't chipper yet, but I'm feeling spry.
Right on. Well, maybe you can bottle a little of that and send it over to the president.
Yeah, I sent the letter. I sent the letter over.
Okay. There you go. I love it. Good morning, folks. Welcome aboard. This is the show where Z and I get to talk about whatever it is we'd like to talk about. And, we believe it's important to talk about politics on occasion. And so we have been. And last night was another, I don't know, do we call it a rip-roaring evening or do we call it another sleeper episode in American politics?
I think we call it a hurry up and wait moment. It's one of those moments where if you run the two events, political events last night together, one being the close of NATO program there, and then the press conference afterwards. Joe made the gaffe of calling Zelensky Putin, and then he made the gaffe of calling Kamala Harris Trump. Now, those in itself is in the context of how he said them. Okay, I get it. No joke. I really do get it. But given the background that we're dealing with, I mean, that's not a good thing, because of course he's going to make mistakes, right? Because now he's really under the microscope, right? Everything, every stance, every look, every word, comma, period, that comes out of his mouth is going to be scrutinized.
Yeah.
And that's a terrible pressure to be under.
And that's what I heard, right, in that gaffe. He knows that Donald Trump, there is no cognitive decline there. Excuse me. Maybe I got a little cognitive decline going on this morning. There's no cognitive decline as much as it is pressure.
Right.
And he is under pressure. And he has probably been, how many times do you think somebody's asked him if maybe Kamala could beat Trump?
Of course.
And so in his overstressed, overworked, burnt out mind, he mixed up a couple of names. I don't want to be an apologist. I didn't like it.
No.
Right.
No.
It immediately gave the far right a whole lot of fodder. I haven't checked in my far right news feeds today, so I don't know what they're saying, but I can't imagine when I see it. But we've got, the bigger question is, I think everybody understands that now with the revelations of Project 2025, we now know that democracy is, well, there's a knife to democracy's throat, basically, and that knife is being wielded by an orange megalomaniac named Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's under attack.
It is under attack. He's holding the knife, and he got a whole lot of people saying, "Go ahead, boss. Go ahead, boss. He deserves. Go ahead, boss. Do it, boss." You know, it's like,
well, you know, you look at it this way, right? Of course, there's I won't say always, but very frequently there have been these statements about Donald and being in cahoots with the mafia and so forth and so on. And if I look at it now and I start putting pieces together like the Project 2025, Donald is right now like the Godfather, right?
oh, heck
And
yeah.
he doesn't really need to say anything much to make sense. He can throw out these little dog whistles, if you will. But like, you know, before we went on the air, we were talking about, you very seldom hear him really articulate his policies. He throw out little bits and pieces. But when you bring in the Project 2025, he doesn't need to have any policies because that document outlines all of the policies. I mean, it's a 920-page document that covers every agency in the executive branch. He can begin to pick and choose anywhere in there he wants to establish a policy. Although now his team is trying to back away, but pump the brakes. There's like 140 people who have contributed, edited, wrote, whatever, which is more than half of the people who contributed to the document. Some of them have already worked for him in different capacities. Now, you know, if I got that kind of team behind me, all I need to do is talk and then see what people are resonating with, and then tell the team, okay, pull out the one on the immigration. Let's flush that out because that's the. Oh no, let's pull out the one on education because that's the one. And I'm afraid that that's what we're going to be faced with if he gets in the office.
Yep. To me, what Project 2025 clearly defines is that they've had a long-running plan, and this is sort of the culmination. And it just so happens that Donald Trump is the guy they think can make it happen. If they had thought Mark Rubio was the guy to make it happen, they would have been all behind Mark Rubio. Or if they thought Chris Christie would have gone through with this, they would have. Now, I have a little bit more respect for both of those men. I don't like their politics, but I have a little more respect. And I think both of those guys were like, no, I can't sign up for the wholesale destruction of the American government, of the American government. And that's what Project 2025 outlines, is a system whereby they intend. So it is their platform. It is their policy. Trump doesn't need policy that makes sense to the average American or the blue Americans, let's say. He doesn't need any policy that makes sense to people because his policy is to get rid of all of it. His policy is to strip the whole thing away, throw it all away. And for some reason, there's a think tank named the Heritage Foundation, including Supreme Court members' wives, that believe we should do away with our government. And
here's an interesting piece. And you know, oftentimes, and I hope this is not one of those times, people get snippets of the document or information about it, and they don't really delve into it, right? And that's a big one, 920 pages. However, when you read the document, if you read just the very beginning of the document, it tells you that they've been working on this document, this approach, since the 60s. Now, oddly enough, there was a Republican senator last night, or I think he was a senator, or one of them, House or the Senate, that made the statement, oh, we want to go back to the 60s. We need to go back to the 60s. Well, you know, I don't know if those are, you know, code words or whatever, but it's when we think about what's happening and what happened in the 60s, we don't want to go back there. I mean, in the 60s, they were still sicking dogs on people, right? They were still
Right.
turning high pressure water hose on people. And now we have much more invasive, intrusive, and damaging equipment and surveillance and everything like that. That would be a major disaster.
We're at the who said it? David Alexander said it in our interview on Tuesday. Folks, we did a great interview with David Alexander on New Thought Today on Tuesday this past week. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's in our YouTube archives. But we're at that moment where it's like, well, you know, they came for the Jews and I didn't say anything because I wasn't Jewish, and they came for the hippies and they came for this. Well, guess what, folks? They're coming for everybody now.
Yeah.
If you are not a white Christian nationalist, they're coming for you.
Right.
And that's not hyperbole, and that's not fear mongering.
No.
That's what this document says. We are coming to take away your rights. We are coming to take away your privilege. We are coming to take away everything you have unless you are allegiant to our white Christian nationalist perspective.
And they've already done a couple of test cases, one being Louisiana with the 10 Commandments being posted, and two in Oklahoma, where they've already said the Bible will be taught in history classes in the entirety of Oklahoma. Now, people say, oh, hee ha ho. Those are tests to see the tolerance, the uprising that people are going to do, and see what kind of defenses people may throw up against these. And I guarantee you that if those hold, which right now they seem to be holding, I don't know if anybody's taking any offense to them in terms of trying to get them repealed. When you look at the southern states, you start looking at Mississippi, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Arkansas, Texas. I mean, if we start going up the East Coast, you got North Carolina, South Carolina, you got Tennessee, you got Kentucky, you got West Virginia. Hey, it won't be long before we're back to a separation of federal and state, and we have an atmosphere and we have conversations that sound just like pre-Civil War rhetoric.
We're marching directly towards it in that regard, I think. It's, and you know, you and I were talking about this right before the beginning. Actually, we almost started late because of it. And we've used the term before. We are living in a post-truth world.
Yeah.
It's so difficult to know really what is and isn't, and even with the way reporting is reported, even with the way the news is reported today, the system of he said, she said, so I'm going to make up what I want to say and blame it on somebody else. Even President Biden last night exaggerating facts to make himself look better, to try to win hearts and minds, and it doesn't. We all know, like everybody has heard the line that he was traveling for the week before the debate, but he wasn't. He had been traveling 2 weeks earlier, and he didn't do 15 time zones last week, and he didn't do, and yeah, he's done a lot of good, but he is now beginning to represent everything that we've been taught we should not trust. He is now demonstrating everything that we've been taught we should not trust in a politician, and it becomes harder and harder and harder to trust any of them.
Yeah.
I mean, as a quick little sideline, Lauren Boebert was pulled over doing almost 20 miles over the speed limit recently. conveniently, her ticket was for 19 miles under the speed limit, which
What?
really makes me think she got a Republican cop and she was probably doing a lot faster. And they said, oh, well, they figured out who she was. So they gave her a ticket for 19 instead of 20 because I think it's at 22 in Colorado. It becomes a criminal offense and not a civil offense. And they let her off. And so they let her off. And then she didn't pay the damn ticket. They had to go after her to pay the ticket. They had to spend more government money to move the case to Eagle County because she didn't pay the ticket on time and this and that and the other thing. This is a U.S. House of Representative who is busted doing 20 over and can't even bother to pay the ticket. Like, how are we to trust any politicians any longer?
Well, the fact of the matter is, how are we to trust anything, right? Here's the dilemma that we all face. We're having this post-truth moment before AI kicks in full throttle.
True.
Now, once AI kicks in full throttle, where I can simulate your face, your body language, your voice, your body intonations, all I got to do is get an image of you and type a speech and pump it into that AI and say animate like ABC, whoever ABC is, and it will be for all purposes who you. Now, if I have to spend all of my time fact checking everything that everybody says, I'm not going to have time to govern. I'm not going to have time to deal with security. I'm not going to have time to deal with economic issues because I don't want to go off the beaten path following some information, some image, some story that is absolutely positively false.
Right. So it becomes easier to check out and just find one guy to listen to. I got my guy. He tells me what to do. I listen to him. And
I mean, you think about it. If we go back 20 years, one of the key components in the educational system was this little idea called critical thinking, meaning you need to understand no matter what happens, there is a point where a decision has to be made, whether to follow or not follow, to listen. At every juncture, there's a decision to be made. But if you don't have a critical thinking platform to operate from, then you are like sheep. You just follow the head sheep or let the dog push you around or whatever the deal is. And that's it.
Have you seen that meme? It's a wolf behind a lectern with a flock of sheep, and the caption on the wolf's caption is, "No, I promise, I'm going to be a vegetarian."
No, I haven't, but that is perfect because and here's, like you said, here is why, and I mean, and I don't want to be doom and gloom. I'm just speaking in terms of the barriers that we have to be aware of and be able to work through as we continue life, basically. Because the other piece of it is, in addition to we're just talking politics. Now, if we flip over to weather, since June, before official start of summer, almost every day, no exaggeration, at least a third of the country has been under extreme heat, under some kind of weather event, tornadoes, rain, flood. That's like for 4 or 5 weeks in a row. I mean, here in Denver, it's going to be 100 plus for the next 3 days.
Right.
I mean, we should be in the high 80s, maybe low 90s, but definitely not 100 plus. And I get it. I mean, I love to stay on top of things, but it can be exhausting. It can be confusing. It could be overwhelming. So when people say, look, I'm out, I get it, but you can't afford to be out because it'll get worse.
Right. And that's the tricky, and you just hit on something. I can't fight for everything. I mean, I could, but am I right? I can't fight for Black Lives Matter. I could fight for Black Lives Matter and climate change and climate awareness and LGBTQ rights and all the various pieces of the puzzle that are out there, right? That we see on the playing field. All the players on the field we can see. And to me, that's what politicians were supposed to do. Yeah. Politicians were supposed to be there to fight for all of them, to be able to take that holistic, systemic look and say, yeah, we need a little here and we need a little there and we need some here, but we need a lot right here, right now, and help us as a people to prioritize how we move forward in life. What I see on the far right is unquestionably doing that, but towards the goal of ripping it all apart, of breaking it all down, of destroying the whole system, of going back to when women had no say over their bodies and couldn't even apply for a credit card without a husband's signature, right? That's what they want to go back. They want to destroy and rip and tear down. And we don't seem to have a champion or a group of politicians that can take in the immensity of it all.
Well, and here's the thing. At its finest, if you will, a politician is an advocate for the district or the people that put them in office.
God help us. Oh, not sure if it's my side or Z's side there, folks. I'm gonna act as if I'm still alive and we're waiting for Z to come back. If it's the other way around, you'll never know I'm saying this. Here's the problem. Here's the thing I have now. I love representative government. I love when it works. And there are times when it appears it doesn't work. Colorado's 4th district. Yeah, it is east side. All right, he'll come back. Here in Colorado, the 4th district has the GOP has put Lauren Boebert on the ticket in the Colorado 4th district to go back to Congress. So I don't know, and I hope I'm going to try it, but I don't know exactly how to have conversations with people that believe we should go back to the 1950s with it. We should go back to the 1960s, and that someone like Lauren Boebert is the best person to represent our voice. Now, I don't live in the 4th district. She doesn't represent my voice, and yet she acts as if she does. She acts as if she's speaking for everybody in Colorado. She secretly tries to tear down departments and is fully in the far right MAGA category, but is happy to take the money and pretend that she did something great for our people when Democrats vote to fund something in her district. It's a duplicitous. Here comes our brother Z. Right on. Welcome back, sir. Whoops. There you go.
Yeah, man. My internet, they must have heard me say something that they didn't like and they dropped me. like a hot potato.
Well, I
but
said
mean,
Lauren Boebert, and they didn't drop me, so I don't know.
But I mean, when you think about it, we are in such a critical point in the history of this country. Because you take the other piece that happened this week, and we've been on politics, and I think rightly so. When we look at what happened at the NATO conference, right? Now, recently, what was it? I think Finland and Sweden just joined.
Yep.
You know, part of the Russian invasion in the Ukraine is to keep them from joining NATO, right? Because now, I mean, when you look at that front, that eastern front, if you will, of the Western front, I forget which one it is, but when you look at Ukraine and Hungary and all these countries that are right there on the border of Russia, if there's nothing to stop them, they're going to keep going.
Well, that's the thing, right? If Ukraine had been part of NATO, I don't think Putin ever would have invaded, because if Ukraine had been part of NATO, we are obligated to go in there and defend, and we are obligated to be a part of that peacekeeping force, and we are obligated to provide arms and personnel and every other darn thing. And not a huge proponent of war, and yet that treaty keeps people and countries safe from the nationalistic overreaches of someone like Putin.
Right. Yeah. And here's the thing. I don't think many people are proponents of war, but war we still have going on in several places around the country. And I mean around around the globe. And so
around the country.
Probably around the country as well, just at a different, it's more of a verbal battle, ideological battle that's going on. But it is, I hear a lot of people saying, well, I don't want to get involved, and I get that. But at least you need to be informed. So when it comes to that point to where you need to pull that critical thinking tool out of your backpack and have a real affinity and understanding of what to do, we're going to need it. I mean, Trump now is talking about pardoning everybody.
I'm concerned that being informed is not enough.
Well, fair enough.
Being informed is not going to save you when they come and want to take away your computer or your freedom because you put out a post that was not so complimentary of the president. Right? I think being informed just isn't enough right now. It feels dangerous to me to just say, well, I was I knew what was going on, but shit,
right.
Again, we're back to, it didn't affect me, so I didn't do anything about it. And I think this affects every single American in some way.
When you said that, I started thinking about that song, Bad Boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
I just found this song. I got to share this with you. I haven't listened to it yet. It's a cowboy. The song's called the Heritage Foundation's 2025 song. It's got 97,000 views, and it was released on the 8th. The subtitle is, "We don't think we'll have to kill you. We don't think we'll have to kill you if you let us have our way. We won't murder your whole family if you listen to what we say. If you get in line behind us, you may see another day. We don't think we'll have to kill you if you let us have our way."
No way.
Now, this is, folks, I want to be clear. To the best of my knowledge, and I haven't listened to this, I'm pretty sure this is a parody. But let me get you to the verses. That's just the chorus. Let me tell you, In 2025, if Trump's elected, we've got plans. We'll transform America to be more like Afghanistan. We'll put our headscarves on the women, prosecute those who are gay, because the heritage folks know that is the real American way. We'll dismantle the government and set polluters free, because some poison in your water is a sign of liberty. We'll outlaw we will outlaw mifepristone and shut down those solar farms and ensure that all school children come to school properly armed. We don't think we'll have to kill you if you let us have our way. Again, I'm pretty sure this is parody, and I'm trusted it is, and yet it sounds an awful lot like what we're seeing when the leader of the Faraday Foundation says we are in the middle of the second revolution and it'll be bloodless if the liberals let it be, meaning if we just roll over and get in line with them. I think that guy should be brought up on charges for threatening democracy.
I don't know. You know, and what'll happen, and I get it, you know, the whole thing of freedom of speech will come up, but there's got to be a point in that article that says, yeah, as long as you're not, you know, you can't go into a crowded building and say fire, right? So in the same vein, these kinds of things should not be allowed.
I like that. Let's take that. It is common. No, you can't run into a crowded theater and yell fire. Why can we run onto a crowded news network and yell revolution? And yell insurrection and yell we're coming to get you.
I don't know.
Because they call it news.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, at what point does this stuff become you know, dry wood on a raging fire?
Well, I think, you know, I was in a conversation and it was said in jest. Well, no, maybe it wasn't said in jest. I don't know. But what I heard, and I didn't follow the thread because I didn't want to go down that road. And this wasn't on air. This was in a private conversation. But what I heard this person say was it's almost time for the left to rise up and reveal some of our righteous anger. And this is in a spiritual conversation with a spiritual leader, with a respected reverend that in our movement. And part of me was like, yeah, imagine what would happen if all the new thoughters in the world showed up with a gun in their hand. But that isn't, that would be so off brand. It's not who we really are. And yeah, I want to, I'm looking at the clock and I'm realizing we want to bring this back to a good principle somewhere here, folks, right? Is that it's okay to have this righteous anger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people on the left and a lot of people in spiritual communities and a lot of people in the New Thought movement, I think, are getting to that point of righteous anger. But what are we going to do with that? How are we going to channel that? We can't sit on our thumbs and not argue for our desired outcome here. We can't just hope and pray it away until November and see what happens. The last time we did that was 2016, and we ended up with 4 years of wannabe dictatorship. We can't just sit around and you're going to hear us folks screaming from the rooftops for the next several months. Vote, 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 vote. Vote early, and I can't say vote often, that's a joke, but vote early and vote your conscience. And you don't have to worry about what the person next to you thinks, and you don't have to worry about what sign your neighbor has in the lawn. You vote your conscience. And I believe I would like to see the largest voter turnout in history for a presidential election. And let's see what, and if we have the largest turnout in history, and the people of America vote for Donald Trump, I will shut my mouth and try to move to Europe, I guess. I don't know.
Well, and here's the other thing. Right now we're like, what, 8 weeks out from the vote, something like that, 12 weeks out. I don't know. It's going to be the first part of November. So we got September, October. We got like 4 months.
3 months. 3.5.
So we got the rest of July, August, September, and October. Right. Yeah. So we got 4 months, basically. Now, the thing is, I believe, as well as understanding these presidential platforms in our local regions, we need to look at everybody that's on the ballot. Congressmen, state representatives, school board chairmen. The primaries are over. So we know who's going to be going up against who. That's done now, right? So for the most part, the ballots for federal and local and state and county, because we got all of it. We got local, county, state, and fed that we have to be concerned with. Go to your political team, if you will, in your state and county, and start finding out who's running, what's their platform, what are they supporting, because they're talking. I mean, imagine if not only Donald Trump got to be president, but all the other houses and senators and congressmen are majority of Republicans as well. There's going to be no, unless they start doing filibusters. I'm going to get the stage and stand up here 48 hours to keep you from voting. And as soon as I get tired, they're going to vote it.
Yep. Hey, let's do a couple of quick shout outs. Abe, yes, I agree with you. We don't need to show up with guns, but we do need to show up. Absolutely. And Linda's got a really good point. Everybody needs to check to ensure they're registered, especially if they haven't voted for a couple of elections. Yes. If you haven't voted for a couple of elections, number one, welcome back. You must get registered and vote. And, I want to say I hear people poo-poo mail-in balloting. We've been doing it here so long here in Colorado. I don't remember the last time I walked into a polling place, had to spend a half a day standing in line and walk into a polling place to cast my ballot. I get to do it from the comfort of my home. I get to do my research. I get to make sure all the boxes I want are checked, and everything is tracked. I get a text when they send it saying, look out, it's on its way. I get a text when they know it's been delivered, and I get a text when it's been given back, and I get a text when they count it. So yes, vote in, and real quick, I just want to make, even if you believe you're registered, double check. Especially if you live in some of the states that have a tendency to look a little more red than blue, because in red states there are still a lot of efforts to eliminate voters, to purge voter rolls, to clean up the voter rolls, to make it more realistic. That means they're trying to get rid of names, and you want to make sure your name is properly registered to vote.
Yeah, and I just think about the vote. I mean, it's been several years ago. When I first moved to Colorado, I signed up to be an election judge, right? So I would go get trained on the equipment and everything, and I would be at the polls to help people understand, And I think the last time I was an election judge was, I don't know, in like 2006, 2007. And even back then, we were beginning to get into the foray of mail-in ballots.
Yeah.
And so we've been doing it for 15, almost 20 years maybe, and it works.
Works well. If your state isn't doing mail-in balloting, folks, if you don't have mail-in voting in your state, get with your Congress people, get with your senators, start. There's a great way to get involved. Just simply start a letter campaign, get friends and family to write letters. I don't know why, but Congress people still pay attention to that. Right? It might take 4 or 5 months and you might get a form letter saying, nah, we ain't gonna do that, but at least you'll get a response at some point and let them know, hey, this is not acceptable. We need to move to this new idea, this new way of doing voting, and tell them, look to Colorado for an example, because I think we've been an overall a huge success in that regard.
Yeah, we have. And I mean, we have to have people go and get involved, whatever that means. Whatever that means, because there's a lot at stake right now. And I just think, we need more than prayers and energy and all of these things people say, especially in the New Thought community. From a religious science perspective, Ernest said, treat and move your feet, pray and have some action. Says in the prayers without works are nothing. I can't pray for something and then go in the opposite direction of what I'm praying for.
Yep.
There has to be some synchronicity. There has to be some alignment with mind, body, action, and soul if we're going to make a difference, if we're going to allow these principles of unity and oneness and the brother and sisterhood of man. It takes work. It's more than just rhetoric, because now we know AI can create as good or better rhetoric than any human at this point. Yep. That's why people are so trying to outlaw it and fear it and all this other stuff, because it's coming.
Yep. We were talking about David Alexander's book. My fog is there. Freedom from Discord. One of the things he shares is one of the great myths of our philosophy is that we're not political here. It is a myth, and it's something we need to let go of, and it's something we need to really work towards. And here's how it works, folks, and we're going to wrap this up. I sat on an interview last night. Rev Z here did a great panel discussion with a group of women talking about the Celebrating Our Soul conference that's coming up at Unity Village here in August, with members of the People of African Descent New Thought Group and their leadership. And in that, I heard Rev Z put out a call for a think tank. And I've been saying that for a year or so now. And now I hear my brother saying it too. And that's how it works. When we have a divine idea, divine inspired idea, tell your friends. Let's start talking about this stuff. What would it look like for there to be a New Thought political think tank? A New Thought, a think tank that is focused in on the rights and the standards, and I'm missing a word, but for people of color. What would it look like to have a New Thought think tank that's writing policy and helping to craft and shape the politics of our country that is focused in specifically on LGBTQ issues? Again, people of color, all these marginalized groups that show up at our doorsteps looking for salvation, looking for something, looking for faith. And we say, yeah, we love you and you're an amazing being, but we're not going to do a damn thing to fight for you in the courts. We're not going to do a damn thing to fight for you in government. I think those days are done. And if New Thought is to have a future without political think tanks involved, I think we're missing the boat.
Mm-hmm.
You may, I was just sitting in my chair last night, Z, going, yeah, brother, preach it. Because it's like, now there's two of us on that boat. And where two or more are gathered, we know what happens.
Yes, sir. I mean, my whole adult life, which started early, started with the ideas of think tank back in the early 70s.
Yeah.
Of how do you go out and create programs and activities in your community to support your community. And you know, if you look back at the 60s, last thing here, you know, a lot of the things now that came out of the 60s and late 60s, early 70s, things like co-ops and farmers markets and community activism in terms of patrolling your neighborhood and schools. Those things are now coming back in vogue because the landscape is different, but the atmosphere is the same. And we have to begin to understand history. We have to begin to understand geography, things that now they don't teach that much anymore. But when you begin to look at them, you see the connectivity of all things, as we always say, and what my part is in that connectivity.
Yep. All right, folks, we have run overtime on our allotted overtime. So we really do need to get out of here. However, we do want you to tune in throughout the day. We've got a great day of programming on New Thought Media Network. All of our regular programming is here. Morning Sip starts at 8:30. Morning prayer starts at 8:15. Morning Sip is at 8:30. And we've got our Spanish language programming at 9 and Spanish prayers at 9:30. 11 o'clock is the Joy Show with Rev Barbara. Michael Mangus, Pastor Michael, will be sitting in on the good news at 5, and he's doing the fireside chat at 6. And that's all because we have a special concert tonight with Amy Steinberg and Laura Berman, broadcasting live from my backyard at 7 o'clock tonight. Tune in for that as well. That'll be on our YouTube and Facebook channels, so please check that out. Z and I will be back again next Friday with more of Ministers Talking Shit. But until then, we want to wish you a peace and man, I gotta get on top of my closing today. We want to wish you peace and richest blessings. Until next time, bye now.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.